A deep dive into 1982, a very special year for me for professional wrestling. It's basically now I'm in my teens and I'm past the childhood view of wrestling as, you know, whatever it was that attracted me to it as a kid. Now I have a better understanding of it, of who the wrestlers are and what the matches are and what the object is. And I just had a better grasp of it at this point, rather than, you know, in the 70s when I was a kid. And what attracted me maybe have been the colors and the bumps and the whatever it may have been. But now I can really say 82 was the year it really grabbed a hold of me and really became a super fan. And up in the Northeast, for the WWF territory, for me, it was probably one of the best years between 82 and 83 of all. I just absolutely loved that time period. It's also very difficult to find 1982 on any kind of home video or DVD for the on the black market. Anyway, every year is available from the 70s TV all the way through the 90s. 82 is not. Well, let me say a decent quality of it anyway. There's some terrible ones out there that are just unwatchable, but no one's been able to capture 1982. And if it's on YouTube, it's never up for very long. And without a doubt, though, my favorite WWF time. And we're going to take a look at every magazine as they were released on the newsstands, each publication. And this is going to be a deep dive as deep as it can go, because shockingly, there was not a lot of magazines out. This is just before the explosion. We're going to see two new publications making their way in 1982. At this point, there was a handful of publications, and that was it. 83, 4, and 5 is when the shit really went crazy with magazines from every publisher who had a magazine company. But in 82, there's not very many at all, and you're going to see as we go through. We're going to go through each one. If I don't say the month as it changes, every time you see a new Inside Wrestling, that'll be the start of a new month. So it goes Inside Wrestling, The Wrestler, Sports Review, PWI, and so forth. And that's for every deep dive video. We always start it with Inside Wrestling and then go with Wrestler and blah, blah. Right out of the gate, January 1982, NWA has a brand new champion. Ric Flair defeats Dusty Rhodes on the cover, January 1982. And Flair sitting on the far side here with the championship belt after the win. And there's also a great looking poster of this in the PWI coming up months where we're going to show. I'm going to show a few posters out of the PWIs. Normally, I usually don't, but we're just going to show maybe the champions, because there's a lot of champions featured with belts, and I figure I would just show the posters that are involved also. So right out of the gate, Ric Flair, new champion. Also in the Mid-Atlantic magazine, which was a territory magazine. And I never, these are pretty cool. It'd probably be more sentimental to the people who lived in the Carolinas and so forth at that time period. There's not a whole lot I didn't hear for the prices that they cost for me to really, go after too many. But I have a couple that I was attracted to by the covers, especially if there was a champion on the cover. But this is a pretty cool one. It discusses Flair's win and off to the races with our new world heavyweight champion. Continuing on in the NWA territory is Georgia Mass Superstar and Tommy Rich's feud continue on. January of 1982, The Wrestler. Up to the Northeast in the WWF, Backlund is battling with the Magnificent Morocco, the Intercontinental Champion, and they would have tremendous battles throughout this entire year of 82, and that would continue into the latter part of 83. Morocco would take the title twice, and he would have both times have some great matches with Backlund. PWI covering the title change for Ric Flair against Dusty Rhodes on the cover, and Backlund gets the American, I guess it's the Foreigners Wrestler of the Year award for Japan and New Japan, and Backlund won that award. He beat Hulk Hogan for it. Inside the center of the magazine is Don Morocco poster as the Intercontinental Champion. Great looking magazine pinup poster for the Magnificent One, who I thought was awesome. Great champion. Always liked him. Always liked his attitude. tough and rough, can give a mean interview, and really gripping. Listening to him talk, it's like, man, this guy's gonna. And I'm a big Steelers fan. He was come out with the Bradshaw jersey and the Franco jersey, so I just thought that was cool too. Best of the Wrestler got Gene Anderson with Andre the Giant, discussing Andre wins his 1,000th match. Winter issue of 1982. The return of superstar Billy Graham, winter of 1982, and he's going back after Bob Backlund's belt. The only thing missing was the Superstar Graham that we wanted. Instead, we got this version of Superstar, and it's an acquired taste for sure. Not for many of us who were Superstar fans wanted to see this version of him. Quite frankly, it's kind of thing you kind of just put out of your mind, and it's like, oh man, just focus on him in the 70s, and that's kind of where it lies. But he had a good run in 84 though with Billy Jack for the Florida title, I gotta say that, and he was in great shape for that. I mean, he was tremendously jacked again in 84. But this is the winter issue of Wrestling World. Wrestling World put out, I think, 4 issues for 82, as well as a special issue for that year. But not many, it wasn't one every month. Kerry Von Erich wins the American Heavyweight title in Texas, and Gurria and Martel defeat the Moondogs for the WWF Tag Team Championship. And good looking shot of Gurria and Martel. For the Garden month of January 18th, 1982, Backlund goes against Adrian Adonis for Adonis's first attempt at the title. Let's see, for the first one of this year, I should say. Valentine takes on Pedro for the Intercontinental title. Polish Power, Putski, Killer Khan, Gurria and Martel take on Fuji and Saito. And Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, faces the Executioner, whoever the Executioner may have been. It's not the original Executioners, the tag team champions, that much I can tell you. We'll take a look at a boxing magazine. We're going to throw one in at the end of every month. So at the end of this month, January 82, Sugar Ray Leonard coming out on top against Thomas Hitman Hearns in a war that these two would face several more times in the boxing world. Great feud with Leonard, for sure. 1981, late 81 and the beginning of 82, and all through 82, they have released the Wrestling Photo Album number 4 for mail-in only. It was, like I said, it was released in late 81, but we're showing it here for 82. This is when it was most memorable to me, and I remember reading the back cover of the magazine, seeing this. I don't know if any people have ever seen the inside of these. I'll flip through a couple pages. It's nothing special. I mean, they're black and white pages. They're the same, maybe a little bit thicker. That's a good shot. Here's David Von Erich as the Texas Tornado, as you can see on the bottom there. The Samoans when they were the tag champs in 1980. The paper's a little bit thicker than the regular paper, not much. Cowboy Orton, Patterson. Just trying to go through. There's a couple color pages inside. A younger Morocco here. Blackjack Mulligan and Dick Murdoch. We'll get to, there's Kevin Von Erich as the Missouri champion. Good looking shot of Kevin. Young Kerry, the sensational rookie, Kerry Von Erich. 82, he wasn't a rookie, I don't think, though. I think he came out sooner than that. And in the middle, you get the color pinups. Good looking shot of Bob with the WWF title. Nick Bockwinkel as the AWA champ, Mr. Wrestling 2, and also the front cover of PWI original issue taken at the backstage of the Westchester County Center in White Plains. But yeah, it just goes on. There's a shitload of, there's the original Graham, but the belt, and, the Great Mastifo, the ripoff of the Sheep. So that's what it looks like inside. If anyone was on the fence of one, I mean, if you can get it at a decent price, I'd say definitely. But I mean, I wouldn't pay no $100 for it. Backlund now in a new month, February, taking on Greg Valentine in the old dupe match, which caused the holdup for the WWF title. Confusing finish. We discussed this, several times in the past over these videos, but for anyone new watching, yeah, this is the one where Valentine got his hand raised at the end of the match. They're both blonde hair. They both have black trunks on, and the referee raised Valentine's hand after Valentine was pinned by Backlund. There was a big confusion. The referee couldn't tell the two apart. So for the confusion, they held the title up for a month, and they had to come back in a Texas death match the following to determine who the champion was. Magnificent Battle of the Golden Boys. Wildfire Tommy Rich and new world champion Ric Flair. Now, I got to remember, Tommy Rich had just lost the NWA title some months back. These two look exactly the same, side by side with the hair and the robes. Not so much the robes, but the gold belt, and they were almost mirroring each other. If you passed them on the magazine covers, you could sometimes confuse the two. So, new champion versus old champion. Which one is the NWA going to cater to? One would think it was going to be Rich because he was such fire in freaking magazines, man. 80, 81, 82. He was just on every freaking issue. Could not keep them on the newsstands when Tommy was on the cover. But the reins were handed over to Flair for sure, for whatever reasons, whatever political reasons. We'll just leave it to the kayfabe gods and leave it at that. But too bad for Tommy. Could have had a bigger star on his back than he did. Sports Review, February 1982, Mil Mascaras, and this is very deceiving because I remember reading this as a kid. 1,000 masks, 1,000 moves, but no titles. So I went through my life thinking, Mascaras was never a champion at nothing, which that's nothing could be further from the truth. The guy held a ton of titles. And but I guess what they mean is, in the United States for world titles, I guess they forget that they put him on about 8 covers with the IWA world title in 75 through 77. Also was the Mexican heavyweight champion, which also featured on several magazine covers as well. But as a kid reading that, you're thinking, God, the guy never held no belt anywhere. I'd only see him once in a while. He would pass through WWF TV and be stuck to the TV screen like a moth to a light when he was on. It just absolutely captured your attention when he jumped on your TV screen and flying around like he did, which was totally undone. I was an instant Mascaras fan, as most of you guys already know. A very bloody shot of Ric Flair here with the gold. On the cover, the price of being champion is blood. Harley Race and Ric Flair would continue their blood feuds, and some of the best matches for a feud ever is Race versus Flair. Morocco and Backlund are on the small corner shot, going after Bob's title, and the inside centerfold is the tag team champions of Gurria and Martel, and good looking shot of the two tag team champions there. And like I said before, if you're a collector and you get PWI, make sure the poster's there. I mean, no poster, no deal. It's just, you got to have a complete. That's the main reason people gravitated towards PWI. It's because the posters were, they were the only game in town. Wrestling Scene wasn't out yet. All Stars, Ringside, none of that stuff was around yet. So it was the first company to give us a color poster, and so everybody wanted them. So everyone ripped them out. Now they're collectible because everybody ripped them out, including myself. And honestly, I still do. I have a couple here I'm going to show today that I already ripped out. But what am I going to do? Save it nice for the next guy? I don't care. I'm never selling these. So if I hang them on my wall, I mean, I want to enjoy it too. Why am I going to keep it nice for somebody else? Sports Review, 1982. Mr. Wrestling 2 and the Masked Superstar get it on in Georgia. Backlund faces Ric Flair here, and I wasn't prepared to see this yet. This is in the wrong order. Backlund faced Flair. I think, it's funny. Weston, when he releases certain issues, like Superstars would be, their first issue would be in the spring, and then it would go summer, fall, and then winter would come out in like November. In other issues, he would release the winter one first in like January, February, and then, spring, summer, fall. So he flip-flopped them. This match didn't take place till May, so we're only in January or February, whatever, of '82. So this is out of order. He threw me off with this one being on this date. But we're going to get to it because I want to open up the magazine and show a couple of color shots of Flair and Backlund. Also, the Freebirds win the National Tag Team Champions, right down here with a nice photo of the Freebirds as champs. Pedro Morales would Intercontinental Champion here, and an older pick, and there's no date, of course, and you're going to see this pop up twice because Wrestling News is a bitch when it comes to their labeling and their double magazine covers, which you're going to see, and this is mid '82, but it's behind with the news. It's called Wrestling News, and they're behind because Morocco was the champ. February 15th, 1982, we got Bob Backlund defending the title again against Adrian Adonis. Valentine and Pedro, also Fuji and Saito, take on Pat Patterson, Rick Martel, and Gurria. I'm sorry, I meant to say Albano with the Fuji and Saito. Black Eye and beat up is Sugar Ray Leonard from the Hagler fight. You've got To Want It Bad Enough, and an exclusive interview with the Golden Child, Sugar Ray Leonard. I say that because he was certainly the name they were pushing after Muhammad Ali to be the next poster boy for the magazines. Not a big fan of Sugar Ray at all as a kid, but as I matured and learned to watch with a fighter's eye, I really respected Leonard a lot as I got older and understood the game of boxing better. Texas Death returned bouts Valentine and Backlund in March of '82. And good looking shot here of Backlund coming down with the leg drop, and Tommy Rich's own story, why I should be the NWA champion on the top. U.S. champion Sergeant Slaughter, former champion Harley Race. How Harley Race's attempt to win the easier title, quote unquote, ended in disaster. Fuji and Saito are the new tag team champions. At the bottom of the screen here, you can see their first appearance on the cover with the tag belts. Valentine boasts, I'm here to cripple every WWF legend, and this is March of '82's issue. When he first came on the scene in '82, they were really kind of not pushing hard, but kind of like giving him the Flair gimmick with the limousines and the gold and the rich guy and the $10,000 robes, and he's kind of using a lot of Flair's talk. I mean, of course, nowhere near the charisma of Flair, and can never pull it off as good. But it was kind of like their version of a nature boy up in the Northeast here with Valentine. And seeing how those two just ended a vicious war in '81 or so, and they were tag team partners for a long time. It was pretty cool to see Valentine do quite well up in the Northeast. He had a lot of success up here. And the awards issue, March 1982, we've got Ric Flair, the Wrestler of the Year. I'm sorry, the Most Improved Wrestler of the Year. We've got the Freebirds as the Tag Team of the Year, Match of the Year, Killer Khan and Andre the Giant. Most popular would be Tommy Wildfire Rich. Manager of the Year, Captain Lou Albano. And Rookie of the Year, David Sammartino, going by Bruno Sammartino Jr. Yeah, I'm sorry, Wrestler of the Year is Flair. I don't have my glasses on. And Kevin Sullivan on the bottom here is the Most Improved. Sorry about that. Yeah, where the fuck are my glasses, man? I'm going to need them. Well, be prepared for me to make a few mistakes as I can't read. I'm trying to read through the camera phone here so I can see, and I got to focus on something else. Especially with that date. Holy Christ, this is really small. September '82, Tommy Wildfire Rich on the cover. Tommy Rich, as good as they say, question mark. And you can start to see a little bit of a turn here on the magazines in the favor of Wildfire. Is he as good? We're starting to second question him now. Was he the guy we thought he was? Your number one selling poster boy. Now all of a sudden you're going to get a little bit of negative press here. On the far bottom left, the spoiler, very close to Mil Mascaras' mask here. Very, very close. You don't see that very often. As a matter of fact, I think this is the only time I've ever seen it. I know his masks pretty well, big spoiler fan, and that's the first time I recall seeing him with that style mask. Wrestling news, Dusty battles to re-win the NWA title from Flair, and this is March of 1982 wrestling news. And this familiar cover, we just saw it in blue a few minutes ago. They do this a lot, wrestling news. You know, same exact cover. This is wrestling news. This is now released as The Rings with just a different color. Sometimes they didn't even change the color. Basically the same magazine. If you're a collector and it goes by the numbering system, you know, you're going to need it. This is issue number 80, and the other one is, wow, that's also number 80. How about that? They just did a total dupe with the name and put it out twice. One for February and then another one for March. How about that? Backlund defends the title against Jesse the Body Ventura with Polish Power Ivan Putski. Because I don't have my glasses on, I almost said Backlund versus Putski. This is March 14th, Madison Square Garden. Lineup, Patterson meets Captain Lou Albano. Pedro Morales takes on Adonis for the title. Boxing comes to the Meadowlands, the new arena from Brendan Byrne Arena, just opening up some maybe 10 or 11 months prior, and it's coming to the Meadowlands from the Madison Square Garden, trying to take away a little bit, trying to create a new spot for the fans, less hectic to get to, less of, well, I'm going to say less of a shittier neighborhood. You know, the Meadowlands, there's no neighborhood. You got nothing out there for miles except for marsh. But nothing's like the Garden. No way. Nothing will ever come close. I didn't like wrestling out there. I did see a UFC out there, which I thought was pretty good. It was a little bit too big of a place for the UFC because UFC was still small then. Tito Ortiz, I think, took on Elvis Sinosik, and it was a wild ring entrance too, by the way, man. Wow. Tito really fucking brought that. April 82 Inside Wrestling, Dusty Rhodes taking on Bockwinkel for the AWA title. Only Dusty Rhodes can save the AWA from Nick Bockwinkel. So Dusty's making his rounds from the WWF in an appearance here and there at the Garden, back to the NWA, losing the world title, now over to the AWA, challenging Bockwinkel. Jack Briscoe and Flair continue their bloody feud, April of 1982. How Jack Briscoe controls the fate of Flair. Spoiler, back on another cover. This is the most he would be on, a couple in 78 or 9, and then nothing for a long time, and then a couple in 1982, and then that's it for the spoiler forever, which really sucks because, like I said, I was a fan and we never got to see him hardly at all in covers in the magazines. Way more than the Assassins, I will say. You know, we were just talking about that with our buddy Jammer. We were saying... we were talking about the, was it the Omni with the Assassins and shit? I forget what we were talking about, but the topic came up of the Assassins, and I was like, you know, they're on nothing. I mean, you know, they're on like a couple small corner shots, and besides Florida Grapevine programs, they haven't done shit. Very ignored for a very powerful team that's been around for a long time. But the spoiler with his manager, J.J. Dillon, busted wide open. There's been I remember online people were saying, who is this? And the names were ridiculous. And I'm just laughing at all these people's comments, and they're swearing it's so-and-so and so-and-so. And it's just like, oh my God, man, it's, you know, if you have the magazine, you know exactly who it was. It's J.J. Dillon, manager of Florida at the time. Always like this look of Harley Race, that big full beard, man. It's just, I don't know why. I just thought it was a better look than a mustache, especially at that time period in like 82, 81, 82. Not many beards were worn fashionably then, and Harley really had a thick one that was looking cool. His plan to control wrestling, first by dismantling Flair and getting the title back, and also destroying Backlund, who they've already had a long history together, changing the Missouri title back and forth a few times back there as Backlund was coming up through the ranks in Missouri. And while Harley was the champion, Backlund took that title from him in '76. Magnificent Morocco on the cover at the Brendanburn with Mil Mascaris, the two men Bob Backlund fear the most, and justifiably so. Only you're safe in the Northeast because no good guy will wrestle a good guy. It's one thing I didn't like about that. It was pretty much everywhere, but Japan. They let the fans decide, give them the match that they want. Good guy, bad guy, doesn't matter. If we're gonna have a match and we're gonna see who the better wrestler is, and the fans will decide who the heel is, and that's a pretty cool formula, but never really caught on in the States too much. NWA would do it a lot more. The WWF would never did it. Twice maybe. But it's a shame because we were shortchanged on a lot of really great matches that could have went. Even like two bad guys together, shit, it would have been, who knows? It would use your imagination. We could have had some fantastic matches there, heel versus heel or even face versus face. Ernie Ladd, now the manager of the Samoans in, I almost said the Mid-Hudson, Mid-South with Bill Watts, and this was a time when I had first seen Mid-South wrestling on TV, and I was just shocked. I was like, what are the Samoans doing over there in this little shitty high school gym? Where is this? And who are these announcers? Then as fast as that channel was on, it was off. I never found it again. We had it for a couple of weeks here in New York. Then it was gone, man. It was pretty cool to see that. Never seen another company yet. The only other company, Florida, I would catch once in a while, but it was on the Spanish channel and couldn't understand shit and just didn't know what the hell I was looking at. I just thought it was in Mexico somewhere. I never knew it was in Florida. But that was like the only other company at 12, 13, 14 years old, whatever, that you'd never seen besides your own company. You're like, wow, this is pretty wild. Let's see. So April 26th, Superfly Snuka makes his first appearance in the WWF for the title and taking on Superfly. Snuka is Backlund's taking on Snuka, and what a feud they would be. Went down in history as one of the best feud/matches of all time in the WWF at one time. I don't know about today, but Backlund and Snuka feud was awesome, and big Snuka fan. It's Snuka really goes under the radar, and people don't think of him as like a champion. That guy's held a shitload of titles. 4 or 5 times he was Pacific Northwest Tag Team Champions with Dutch Savage. He was also held the Pacific Northwest, I'm talking about Portland, half a dozen times as a heavyweight champion. He battled Jesse the Body Ventura a few times out there and Buddy Rose. He's all a face out there. He went to Texas and was tag team partners with Gino Hernandez. He was tag team partners with Terry Gordy in Georgia. Christ, he's had Orndorff and Ray Stevens were the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions, or would be considered the World Tag Team Champions in the NWA later on. Snuka held a bunch of belts, man, and in his whole tenure with the WWF, he didn't hold shit, and he was, jacked up, built great, had a really cool look, a champion wherever he went, except for the WWF. And as soon as he leaves the WWF in like '87 or so, he goes to South. Where did he go? He went to Lawler and became a champion there. I think it was a tag team. I can't remember, but he ended up getting a title, and then back to the WWF, and then nothing until the ECW, and he was their first heavyweight champion. But Snuka really should have been recognized at least as the Intercontinental Champion. He gave it to fucking Pedro Morales, and he was far past his prime. He was an old man. Nobody gave a shit about Pedro anymore, and and you got Snuka right here battling Morocco. He should have took the title for sure. For whatever reasons, politically, legally, in his troubles he was in at that point, or whatever. It's just, right is right, whether he could handle it or not, or can trust him or not. The guy should have been a champ. Come on. Continuing on, Jesse is taking on Tony Atlas, and Blackjack Mulligan takes on Steve Travis. Bob Orton makes his debut in the WWF Garden. These little suckers are getting very expensive for some reason. 1982 programs with Hulk Hogan on the cover. I think I have a few of them here. Yeah, he's just finished a Rocky movie, and in the AWA, I guess anything with Hogan and the AWA, for some reason, the prices have been skyrocketing. Ridiculous. People were sending me some links on YouTube or eBay for the prices of this shit. I couldn't believe it, man. He would go on to have some pretty cool battles with Bockwinkel in '82. We discuss a lot of that in the AWA video, and the do's and do's nots of what happened with him and why it didn't work out with Vern. But man, what a missed opportunity, and for everybody there, the fans especially, because they're the ones who paid to see it the most. World champion Holmes taking on Cooney for the heavyweight championship of the world. The Great White Dope was nowhere near the hype that they pumped him up to be, or this fight to be. And, Holmes was the man, still the man, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, no doubt. Adonis match from the Garden finally making its way to the cover of a magazine, May now, Inside Wrestling, Backlund, and I think that is... can't see. Yeah, David Von Erich and Mike Von Erich. David Von Erich and Mike Graham are feuding right now in Florida. David just turned heel, coming up from Texas, and he goes to expand over in Florida. Makes a run in Florida, goes against Jack Briscoe and defeats Jack for the Southern Heavyweight Championship. And he is a heel, turns his back on Mike Graham rather, and they have a feud, and also with Wrestling 2. I don't know. I don't think it was a great heel at all. Kerry came in for a pop or two in Florida as a heel, and he just looked like an idiot. It didn't really fit him. He's just a too kind of, kind, easygoing guy just to pull that off, and he just didn't pull it off well as a heel. And David really, he probably could have did it better with a little more work on it, but those guys were faces for sure. May of 1982. The strange reappearance of the superstar is now being mentioned on The Wrestler. Backlund, the All-American boy, grows up. Okay. Tommy Wildfire Rich and Ric Flair on the cover of Sports Review, May of '82. Why Ric Flair is the NWA champion and Tommy Rich is not. So you see the magazines really turning on Tommy here, pointing out his flaws, pointing out, he's not the guy we thought he was, and they're slowly pushing him towards a heel, if you could imagine that. And a good heel he would be later on, actually. Kind of liked him at that. But, here's a guy, he's a southern Tennessee area guy, Kentucky, and all through the panhandle, beloved Tommy Rich. Fans went crazy for him. And here it is, Ric Flair, the millionaire, the cocky, arrogant prick. And, he was, I guess, more accepted outside throughout the nation than Tommy Rich was, rather than in the small cliques of, the Delta and up a little bit. It's a shame because, he was a hell of a fucking wrestler. I still enjoy watching him. I just bought a best of DVD of Tommy Rich not too long ago off Amazon. Some great matches that were on there by this little independent company that puts out shitty quality stuff. But you're never going to see it. So I'd rather, have it not the greatest and be able to see these things again because they're not on YouTube or nothing, some of these matches. And it's a lot of small independent shit, some matches in a place called, Miss Kitty's, for those who live down that area know what I'm talking about, for whatever that lasted, and some of the Southern All-Star Wrestling matches, and it's just cool shit to see, man, and you just don't get it everywhere. And I've always been a Tommy Rich fan from the magazines, really, and then when I got to see him, I really enjoyed him. Ric Flair is the pinup of the PWI May issue, and Spoiler back on the cover now for his first PWI. Good looking shot of the Spoiler with the double claw hold taking on Mr. Wrestling 2, Jesse the Body, and Backlund inside the small corner. And here is the poster. I have this on my wall for a long time. It was a great shot of Flair with the belt. And it's pretty much like the front cover of the January issue of we seen earlier, and made a big poster out of it. So that is inside PWI. Jesse again, we've seen a small picture of him in the corner with Backlund. I kind of just glossed over that. Jesse's title match with Backlund at the Garden, and it led to a return bout, and the return bout is in the cover of Spring '82 Wrestling World. Good looking shot of Jesse on one of his first covers of a magazine. They didn't put the heels on too much unless they were with a decent baby face, and you would mostly see baby faces on the covers more so, Solo and whatnot, but pretty good shot of Jesse. He was only on a handful of magazines. He was not on very many, excuse me, at all. May took on Backlund and Flair. Now, I mean, this is something that could have been, gold at the box office if they played their cards right. There was no mention of it. Magazines, covered it decently, but there was no build up to it. This could have been, the Super Bowl of wrestling right here. It's company versus company. It's champion versus champion. Talk about a concept for WrestleMania. You have a tag team match, and it was only successful because of Mr. T. But you have a tag team match as your main event, and people all over the world want to see it. Now, wrestling fans, pure wrestling fans, beg, borrow, and steal to see a match like this, company versus company, who's the best. Yeah, we've seen a couple with Race early on. Superstar Graham and Harley did it in '78, but now this is the '80s. It's a new era, and there's two new champions, and we want to see this, and they don't even talk about it. They don't even talk about it. They don't even record it. I mean, no one's there with a camera to catch this shit. It's just unbelievable. WrestleMania could have been the fantastic concept of, NWA versus AWA or AWA versus WWF. I mean, that should have been, your WrestleMania. WrestleMania is just a match that can happen between two guys in the same company anytime. So what the fuck's so special about that? When you have a Super Bowl and you have something big and you have an idea for a concept of something huge, it should be title versus title, company versus company, AFL, NFL, NFC, AFC. That's how it should be. And this was grossly ignored. Inside, you'll pay a lot for this stupid cardboard card. All these cards are collectible. They put out, I think, 11 out of the 12 months. And this is just one of Terry Funk. That's why these magazines are a lot of money for that reason, too. But here's Backlund on Georgia TV, and with Flair standing there, talking in their suits, talking about the match that's happening at the Omni. Flair in the beginning of the match, Backlund in the beginning with the red, white, and blue, squaring off. Dark, dimly lit place, showing both titles, and just, nothing. I mean, there's no pageantry, there's no pyro, none of that was happening at that point anyway. But, I mean, give me something. I mean, Christ, you don't even mention it. Besides Atlanta talking about it on TV, you never even would have known. And I'm sure that was to try to push some last minute sales of tickets. I don't know. Was it even sold out? Who knows? Great looking shots, though, thanks to our Japanese friends in Gong. They can bring it to you like none other, and this was our best look at a match that we never got to see. I can show it to you in color here, and this is the closest you're ever going to see to those two wrestling each other, and it's quite a shame. I'm just flipping through another couple pages to see what it is. Terry Funk with his shotgun. Here he is at his home in Amarillo, and his family, just for whoever cares. But yeah, what a missed opportunity that could have been. Because companies can't get together with shit, the fans have to suffer the price. Alexis Arguello on the cover of World Boxing May of 1982. I know the glare sucks. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep it out. Sun's cranking around the corner from me, and it's really making a shitty spot behind me here. I'm trying to battle it. June of 82, Inside Wrestling, New Month, Valentine, and Pedro, and a horrible-looking Barry Windham as Blackjack Jr. Flair taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat long before the horrible Dragon gimmick. June of 1982. This is still the Ricky Steamboat that we all loved in the Mid-Atlantic. Me, still a virgin to Ricky Steamboat, haven't had a chance to see him yet, just a couple of years away from getting my first glimpse of him in the ring, and couldn't wait to get him up here, and only to be changed into something I didn't want to see. Superfly Snuka going back to when, here's another title I didn't mention that he held, the United States Championship, Mid-Atlantic title. He defeated Ricky Steamboat at the finals of a tournament. He also had a pinfall win, I believe, over Flair. It was a win over Flair defending that title. And Snuka, was on his way, and it's just a shame that he didn't get more recognition as a champion, because he would have been he was a great champion. He came there also as a heel, by the way. PWI is Jesse and Adrian on the cover. Good looking shot of those two. Ivan Koloff battling Wrestling 2 at the bottom, Georgia territory, I believe that is. And our champion, Nick Bockwinkel. Sorry about the crappy view, but you get the idea of great looking poster of Bockwinkel. Just before that belt would change to the black leather, there's still the brown leather at that point, rarer cut of that belt. Wrestling Superstars talks about Tommy Rich, everything you always wanted to know about Tommy Rich, but were afraid to ask. New magazine hit the market, Wrestling's Main Event, June of '82, and it's got the Backlund and Valentine feud as their inaugural front cover. And Andre the Giant goes off to battle in Japan. Andre is a heel in Japan, by the way, when he battles Antonio Inoki, and had some great matches with Inoki out there. Inoki actually slammed him out there. A bunch of guys slammed him out there. Stan Hansen slammed him out there. Hogan multiple times. It's in all their magazines. It's even on the front cover with Hansen slamming him. I have another issue he's getting slammed on the cover like Harley did in '78, slamming him. July, this is a June and July double month issue for the Rings. First time they're doing that kind of corny shit. Telling us that Jay Strongbow returned to the WWF that none of us really asked for. Jay Strongbow. Garden, Backlund is meeting Superfly again in a return bout. Andre the Giant battling Blackjack Mulligan. Blackjack now in the territory, and I'm getting really close to my first live event. I have the program still to that night. I should say afternoon, I think it was. Big fan. I mean, first time I ever seen Andre and Mulligan, man, they were freaking both huge guys. Backlund again facing Snuka, now in the infamous steel cage match that really set the wrestling world on fire. And Snuka comes off the top of the cage, missing Backlund. Such a shame. Too bad he didn't land on that. I still watch it and I still feel bad, wishing that he would have took him out. Ray Boom Boom Man Zini, I know I'm going to be a champion. Yep, he is, and not knowingly you will end up killing a man in the ring by accident. Horrible, horrible time in the Boom Boom's career, just a little bit away from now. July of 1982, KO now going monthly, so it's every other month, and then this was, like the PWI of the boxing magazine. Stanley Weston put these KOs out. It was to rival the Rings boxing, and it blew away the Ring. Ring's not even close. Anything Stanley Weston put his hands on was just gold for the magazines, and this would be your color. They started their color pinups with KO. No other boxing magazine was really doing that either. So there was pretty groundbreaking stuff that Stanley was putting out for us in America. The Japanese always had great shit for color, but America was really behind on it. Hogan now, we just seen the program from '82 a few months back, now battling Bockwinkel on the cover of Inside Wrestling, and also Adonis is making the cover now with Backlund from the Garden. Tommy Rich and Harley Race, his destiny's in the hands of Tommy Rich, July of 1982. Another grossly ignored wrestler, Austin Idol. Love Austin Idol. I've always liked Austin Idol. People could look at him as a cheap ripoff to Superstar Graham. I don't think so. He may have wore some tie-dye and shit, but he certainly didn't wrestle like Superstar Graham. The guy could wrestle. The guy had, charisma, and he was cool, and marched to the beat of his own drum for sure. Who tells Vince McMahon, yeah, I'm going to get out of here, man. I think I'm going to go down to Florida for a while. And they're like, wait, what? You don't just leave the WWF, dude. What the fuck? Needless to say, he's never been back ever since. For good or for worse, or for his destiny lies the way it was. He had a damn fine career, especially when he hooked up with Lawler. Here he is in Georgia, battling with Steamboat. He's either in Georgia or Mid-Atlantic. Those two interchanged all the time. It's hard to determine the two. But good looking shot of the bloody Captain Lou up top here. You're going to see two shots of Austin Idol. This one was one of my autographed ones, and here's another shot of Austin here in the headlock against Stevens. Pardon me. And this is an annual summer of '82. And he's, like I said, grossly ignored on the covers of the magazines. Maybe 3 or 4. Guy should have been on way more, man. It's just, I think, you stay in one spot too long where the limelight really isn't, and it's not shining on you the way it is for other places, and you just kind of get lost in the shuffle. Also, Hogan now catapulting to the fame in the Rocky movie, and really launched his career without a doubt. Hulkamania was certainly born in the AWA first, and could have been and stayed there had the things been differently, but it was just not meant to be. Summer of 1982, and we got Blackjack and Flair, and a great feud that I would have loved to have seen. I would have also liked to have seen him and Big John Studd battle at Mulligan, that is. I did a little bit on the Knoxville TV programming that I have, but never a main event match where I was able to see any of that, just the TV stuff. And I mean, I'll take what I can get. It was worth it. It was good shit. Wrestling World, summer of '82, Adonis is taking on Rick Martel, and Martel is set to be leaving to the AWA to make a run there. The Carolina Connection, Steve Travis, also Steve Muslin, and Rick McGraw, both had careers cut rather short. This is Wrestling Review now under the header of Wrestling News and the Rings Wrestling, July of 1982. And Bob Backlund battles Blackjack Mulligan, 1982, July, and this was the first event that I ever went to. Back program, it's just the guys in the WWF. No lineup sheet for this, didn't have one. This is all it came with, and there was nothing inside. It was just this program, souvenir program. There, like I said, it wasn't even a list of matches. It was in the newspaper. I remember seeing it there, but not a list for the people. I never even knew of such a thing until later on when I found out that other programs had lineup sheets in them. But I looked online. I forget what the other matches were, but it was pretty cool. Snuka took on Ivan Putski there, which was a cool match, and Andre the Giant came back the month later with the Fuji and Saito, and took on Gorilla Martel and Andre, and that's where I got to see them clash. And man, what giants they were. Thomas Hearns is challenging Marvin Hagler. Too much too soon. Yeah, man, have a back seat. Actually, that fight would happen 3 years later in '85, and would go down as one of the best brawls in boxing history. Only 5 rounds or so, but they beat the living shit out of each other, and very happy, as I was for being a Marvin Hagler fan, that he came out on top of that one. Mass Superstar taking on Andre the Giant, and Backlund and Mulligan feuding. And I remember getting this magazine thinking like, oh, is this the match that I was at? Of course it wasn't, but they wrestled all over the world all over the territory. And when you're a young kid, 13 years old, you don't know that. You just think that's the match. They wrestled once and that was it. No, that same gimmick went on like a circus, and it happened in every other town, 3 hours ahead, a little bit north and south of you. And, but you just was never talked about. You didn't know about it. And you see them happening, on TV once at the Garden, and you figure that feud's over. But you don't know. You don't realize they wrestle each other like 50 times in that month. It's pretty crazy. Tommy Rich taking on Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA title. Nick Bockwinkel, Tommy Rich is too stupid to be champion. Another snooty Beverly Hills, rich, cocky, arrogant champion, Nick Bockwinkel, with a flavor all his own. Totally loved the gimmick, man. Totally like, you're a peasant, and, file my nails and place my napkin on my lap while I eat my dinner, that kind of guy. And it was just perfect to be an asshole for a wrestling champion. I mean, perfect. Another guy who goes very unsung, especially by the magazines, because it wasn't just in the limelight so much. Flair, I'm sorry, I'm taking him as Flair. Tommy Rich getting choked out. Close, but it's a sleeper. It's a fine line between that with Roddy Piper here in the Georgia territory, August '82, and good battle those two had with each other. Dick Slater is taking on Flair in the far corner there. There's apartment matches were also on every one of these. I'm not mentioning it, but you pretty much know it. It ends 1 year from now. The apartment will be on every issue of Sports Review, and then it would end in '83 with Humperdinck on the cover with Jimmy Valiant. August 82, Tommy Rich back on the cover of PWI with Ricky Steamboat, friends or rivals. And you can see now, they're pushing Rich, calling him stupid. They're saying he's not worthy of a champion. Now, is he really a friend of Steamboat or not? They're trying to prepare the fans for a possible heel turn. Hacksaw Butch Reed, jacked up, mean dude in the Mid-South territory, battling Flair for the gold. Good looking shot of Flair pressed over the head. I would have rather had that for the cover. But PWI changed to these. After 82, they went to a strictly posed cover, and that's kind of where they lost my interest. I always enjoyed shots like this, the action shots, that. Encapsulate that shot forever. It's stuck on the cover of a magazine forever. That fleety 1 second right there, captured, stolen, and preserved for the rest of its life, or our lives, right here on this cover. We can see it forever. And it's a moment they would never remember, ever think about, or never even knew they were in, and it's stolen for us to look at for the next 52 years. Flair also talking about the new champion and taking on all the new challenges ahead. This is a special issue for Wrestling World, Winter and Valentine inside. They're also got some color photos in here. Wrestling World, I shouldn't say that. Wrestling World did put color shit out in the 70s. I'm wrong for saying no one did it. It wasn't the greatest, but it was a centerfold of some color. Every once in a while in the 70s, you would get a color shot of somebody or a match in Wrestling World. One of my favorite covers as a kid, and just seeing this take place, on the cover, because I never got to see the match at the time, just couldn't wait to get the $2 out of your pocket to pay for the sucker, or whatever it was, $1.75. I think that's what it was, because these were a little bit more than the Western magazine. Like Wrestling World and Wrestling Scene were always like 25 cents more than the other ones. And I know the PWI, Inside Wrestling, were all $1.50 until like 84, 85. And these were always a quarter more. So that's what I'm saying. It's probably $1.75. I can't see it. I don't have my fucking glasses on. But Main Event put out their next issue, Ivan Putski, and it's August of 1982, talking about the devastating return of Ivan Putski, coming out of Southwest Championship Wrestling with the Blanchards and back up north with the WWF. Martel invades the AWA. Bob Backlund gets an award from the Police Athletic League. Yep, that's what kind of guy Bob was. Charitable guy, kind to the kids, always did programming outside of the wrestling for kids, and that's one thing you could always respect about him. Here is a July issue of Pro Wrestling Monthly. We're just going to go through some of the inside, just look at some of the matches. They gave us a pretty cool tri-fold out of El Canek. First and only one we've ever gotten, but check this out. This is a iron-on decal for your shirt. It's no good anymore, but you can see, like, here's the one half, you press it, and then this part will go across the shirt, and then you'd iron it on, and you would stick it, and you'd have an NWA shirt. Fucking kidding me? In 1982, no one had shit like that. There was no market. There was no toys, figures. You got a magazine and a program, and that was it. Maybe a pendant, if you were lucky to find that, but even that was rare as hell. But to have a decal, they give them to your fans for free in the magazine, unbelievable. This whole year of 82, they put out decals of different ones. There's WWF, there's AWA, there's wrestlers' faces on them. There's different ones, man, and it's really cool shit that they really went the extra mile for their fans. This is looking at some territories. Amarillo, before they closed the Funk's territory in the summer of 82. We'll go through these kind of quick. Abdullah is taking on Funk. DiBiase in Amarillo is going against Flair for the NWA title. These magazines are backwards, so I'm going to I'm showing to you from the left to the right. It's just the other way around, but continuing on with Flair and DiBiase. Great looking color photos. Also, Bruiser Brody in Amarillo taking on the Giant Baba, coming from All Japan to take on Brody. Dusty Rhodes and the Funks inside, tag team with Stan Hansen. Good looking shot of Slater and Funk outside Amarillo. Here's Funk and his daughters there. Christ, the girls look just like them, man. Getting to the Von Erichs here. Well, here's the match at the Cow Palace in San Francisco with Bobby Heenan and Bockwinkel and Hogan in the handicap match. I want to get to Dallas. It was Von Erich's retirement match. Fritz Von Erich versus King Kong Bundy with hair at this point. And Fritz's final match in Dallas, he would retire as winning the world title, the America's title. I thought there was another photo. Here's just a photo shot of the family, of all the brothers together. This would be your last time you would see all the brothers together in a big photo like this. This is, I think, the only time all of them are together like this. Kevin, Mike, Kerry, David, Chris, they were all together, and he's holding the newly won world title that his father retired with. Pretty cool looking shot of a happy family with tragedy and dark times knocking on the door. During the other matches in Dallas, Kerry had a bloodbath with Harley Race. Great bloody match, and he wore white, so he was covered in blood. Great looking shot here of Harley and Kerry. Doesn't get any better than that. Look at that. What a great shot. David and Kevin took on Kabuki and masked somebody or other in a tag team match. But yeah, so Andre the Giant would finish off in a battle royal. There's just a great looking shot of the arena, which is in a ball field. But just the cool looking summer shots from what went on in Amarillo just 3 weeks before this date came out, and pretty cool, man. I thought I would just show something like that. I didn't show many Japanese magazines in this run here, so I thought I would just fill it up and show you the inside of some pretty cool matches. And the Von Erichs, I've always been a big fan of theirs, and I thought it was pretty cool to see the whole family together. Everyone was happy at one point, early 82 there, mid 82. August 82, Backlund takes on Cowboy Bob Orton. The Indians, Jules and Jay, now teaming up and looking for the tag team gold. Bob Backlund takes on Playboy Buddy Rose. Sugar Ray Leonard on the cover of KO. Why Sugar Ray's the greatest fighter ever. And Jesse and Tony Atlas from their battle at the Garden now making it to the cover of Inside Wrestling in September. Kabuki, or is that Kendo Nagasaki rather, and Dusty Rhodes, September of 82. And talk about Dusty's return back to Florida after making a tour from the AWA, WWF in and out, and all points in between was the Duster. And also Muslin / Travis, Blackjack Mulligan at the Garden a few months back. Here's David Von Erich on the cover, and here he is against two, finishing up here with him as the Southern champion, defeating Jack Briscoe, like I think I said that earlier, starting a feud with Mike Graham. But don't worry, he'll come to his senses and come back to being a good guy again before he would leave Florida and leave on a good note. But he was off to the races, man. That he was getting some experience in other territories. Kevin was already the Missouri champion, and David was on his way to beating Flair for the Missouri title somewhere in between this time, or it may have already happened. No, I don't think it already happened yet. I think that was like late 83, I believe. Tommy Rich and Gino Hernandez. Gino making a rare appearance. You wouldn't know it was him unless you read the article and looked really close. Snuka and Backlund from the WWF get the small corner shot. Blackjack Mulligan Jr. gets the centerfold. I don't think it was worth showing that. I mean, it wasn't really worth it. You want to see a horrible mustache and Barry not looking like himself. Fall of 82, we've got the another swept under the rug AWA champion versus WWF champion Bockwinkel, and just swept under the rug. It's just baffling to me. You lose words. I mean, how can you not advertise this a little bit more? AWA champ, WWF champ. I mean, come on, man. Bockwinkel, Backlund, the title versus title. It's money in the bank, and no one talked about it. And the magazines really ignored it too. They put it on their best of, which is months later. Here is Superfly. One second here. Superfly and Ric Flair on the cover of Wrestling World. Also really loved this cover as a kid. Superfly is getting some serious popularity at this point. He's about ready to turn face. He's about ready to have a match with Backlund in the Spectrum where the fans put him so over. I don't know if it was part of the fucking write-up or not. I mean, the fans were cheering like crazy. They shook hands at the end. Backlund put his towel on the shoulders of Snuka at the end of the match. I don't know if that was scripted or not. That was meant to happen. Maybe they knew he was going to turn, and this was, part of it. But something like that would be all scripted today, and it would be all written out. Then you wouldn't be allowed to do certain things. I've always wondered about that, and it's something I'll probably never get the answer to. But it was an interesting time, and I always thought, Philly is the people who turned Snuka, because they cheered for him all the time. Backlund was booed out of the fucking building. If there's any old video, you'll see it. I mean, I watch that match all the time, and it's crazy. It was so much noticeable. Like even the announcers, like, wow, Snuka's popularity is really growing here. The fans have really pushed on him. Still a lot of fans for Backlund, even though you hear all the boos. Your face champion should not be getting that many boos. And it wasn't just because Snuka was hot. I mean, it was just because, a lot of them didn't like Backlund. And that's just the truth. Like I said, myself included, I didn't really respect Bob until much later. And I was able to appreciate, how great he was and what he did for wrestling. And as a kid, you want to see the flashy blood and guts and the slamming and the beating. And Bob wasn't that kind of a wrestler, man. And, believe me, a couple of years later, I'd be wishing he was back, other than the alternative we had with the rock and wrestling bullshit. Fall of '82, Snuka here defending his U.S. title against Flair in an old throwback photo from several years back. Wrestling Review, September '82, got all three world champions. Would have been a lot more beneficial if he had mentioned these guys were going to face each other in the upcoming year, but no one talked about it. Pepsi Boy, Sugar Ray, back on the cover. I say Pepsi Boy because he was on those Pepsi commercials back then. It was crazy. Sugar Ray back on the cover. He must never fight again, and that's not true. He will certainly be fighting again. Tommy Rich back on the cover again with Roddy Piper. I don't have to cheat to defeat Tommy Rich. Bloodied up Andre the Giant from his feud with Mulligan, the Superfly, and Backlund. October of '82, and I forgot to show something else here. Before that match, Snuka appears. This is an October 15th issue of Weekly Fight, and it's just a cool. I know the glare sucks, and this is in plastic, so I have it hanging on my wall with my other Weekly Fight issues. Snuka and Albano, kind of like the magazine we have of them in '83 and the January issue of Inside Wrestling, with the yellow background, but that's a pretty cool one from Japan. And I was like, man, I buy shit like that all day long. Man, I can't not pass it up. Here it is with Snuka and Backlund on the cover of The Wrestler from the Garden. Terry Funk and Abdullah battling in Amarillo, the Battle of Texas. Funk's and Abdullah, winner take Georgia. Ric Flair in the PWI issue on the cover. Why I hate being champion. This magazine always stuck out in my head. I'm like, why would he hate being champion? It's just like the endless travel and the fight after fight, and someone's always looking to knock you off. Color poster is with Jerry the King Lawler, and there's your first look at Jerry. Never appearing on the magazines ever. Very ignored, along with Austin Idol, like you said, and that different parts of the country didn't get much hype. But Jerry was certainly made his name for himself by himself, with Andy Kaufman shit and the stuff that he's done. Some of the best wrestling TV ever in Memphis. I mean, fans and friends and who lived in that area, man, you guys were you guys had some great wrestling TV. Some of the best TV ever. It wasn't my favorite. My favorite would be, outside of the WWF, would in early 80s would be Florida. But the next runner-up, man, was definitely CWA. I mean, the TV was always something exciting. There was always someone getting the shit beat out of them in a parking lot, or off-camera shit going on. It was just, great TV, man. Lawler nailed it on the head every time. Jarrett, I should say, really, right? The Sarge, the new U.S. champion, on the cover of Fall '82 Annual Sports Review. Mulligan, Andre battle at the Garden on the cover of Wrestling Scene in October of '82. Tommy Wildfire kicking off a brutal feud with the Buzzsaw, Buzz Sawyer, and October of '82's issue. Look out for those two in '83, '84. with some of the best blood feuds ever in wrestling. Backlund and the Strombos, soon to be, actually they were the tag team champions, I believe, at this point, or if not damn close, because there's like a 4-month lag, right? So also Olympia and Junkyard Dog, who were the Mid-South tag team champions, also at the bottom of the rings. Backlund defends the title against superstar Billy Graham now, October. So October, November, December will be a 3-month program at the Garden with Superstar and Buddy Rose challenging Pedro Morales, and Orton takes on Andre the Giant. Little Bob Orton versus Andre, no one really ever thought he would have a chance, right? I mean, just the guy's like 110 pounds. Wrestling World, Sugar Ray, once again, I mean, you can see how dominant this guy is. This is every other month. The boxing issues, they weren't every month because there wasn't as many fights as there was for wrestling matches. So every other month they would have World Boxing and they would have KO. There was others too, but these were your two biggest. And it would go every other month. They would alternate. DiBiase and Flair on the cover here. Possibly be from the Amarillo match we just looked at. It probably was, because that was in August, and this is November. Actually that match I think was in July, more so towards the end of July. Most likely, here it is. And Snuka, I can speak for myself. Look out. Snuka is about to start talking. That's funny, he hears a guy who's never spoke, and he doesn't talk, and then you hear him talk, you're like, what? It was only because McMahon wouldn't let him. The guy spoke every other place he went. He always talked. Just up here, he didn't talk. Like, that was cracking me up with George the Animal Steel. It's like, in 85, the guy can't talk. Before that, in 81, 80, even 70s, he's talking about beating Bruno. He's talking about beating Backlund. He would talk slow, like, he was something wrong with him, but it wasn't, it wasn't that kind of stupid shit. I mean, how did he go from talking to not talking? It's just, more stuff that McMahon would just keep changing over time, which is just stupid and for no reason. And Snuka not talking was one of them. I mean, I understand why. I mean, he wasn't the most well-spoken guy. This wasn't his native language, for sure. But he was fine on the mic. He gets his point across with some, gibberish mixed in. But we've heard worse. Listen to Andre, for Christ's sake. You had him talk. Andre, you couldn't understand a word he said. November 82, finally getting the match that we all never knew about on the cover of The Wrestler, Backlund Flair, also Snuka and Putski. Again, I thought this was the match that I had seen. I'm like, oh my God, is this the match that I've seen? Nope, it wasn't. And that was the lesson I learned about them going on the road and taking it like a circus. Flair and Briscoe battle in the Mid-Atlantic, November of 82. Probably my all-time favorite poster, and this hung on my locker in my school, whatever grade I was in at the time, was Superfly. And you notice I'm not even mentioning the cover of the magazine. I'm going right to the Superfly poster. I don't know why. It's just my all-time favorite poster of Snuka. He's bad. He's got the goatee. He's jacked out of his mind, and he's just looking like some maniac. And that hung in my locker at school when I was a kid. Just funny things you do remember. Hulkamania running wild in 82, not getting the title, of course, and Cowboy Bob makes his magazine PWI debut against Pedro Morales after leaving the ICW in Savage Country in the Northeast, where he would live for quite some time. Also, he was also tag team champions in the Mid-Atlantic area too. So, I mean, he had some other places that he was at. But not too many for Cowboy Bob. The sexiest wrestlers reveal their votes are in. Take your pick. Who cares? Salvatore Bellomo, another McMahon find for the Northeast ethnic crowd, and that kind of shit was over. I mean, it wasn't like that anymore. Your ethnic champions and ethnicity really wasn't the key. It was a matter of who's bigger than who's got big muscles, and who can talk the loudest, and who has the most flamboyant gimmick. Things totally changed. Steve Williams making his first appearance on the cover of a magazine, and also the Iron Sheik, which went by several different names. November of 82, Wrestling Review. Snuka on the cover, and I'm just trying to find the November of '82. I was at this. I'm trying to think if this is the event I was at. Yeah, this is my. I was at this show too. This one is what I really wanted to go to, and I didn't. Coming out of retirement, the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers teams up with Snuka to take on, what was it, Albano and Stevens. Man, I would have loved to have went to this. I mean, this was huge, man. Wow. And again, never talked about, never mentioned on a magazine. I think Official Wrestling, that publication was out for 7 issues, put this in their magazine, but nothing else. And that was huge talk in the Northeast with Buddy Rogers. And they were set to come out again and go to the Garden, and it didn't happen. For whatever reason, they were supposed to do it one more time. I always wonder why it happened in Philly too, and not in New York. And for whatever, I forget the political reason or what happened if Rogers was hurt or a dispute or whatever the hell. But shortly after, Rogers was in the AWA. I shouldn't say that. I met Rogers at the AWA TV taping, and he was on camera, but I don't know if it ever went to screen. I got his autograph, shook hands with him. He was a great dude. But I didn't appreciate who he was at the time, because to me he was just a retired wrestler who I'd never seen from the 60s. But later on, and I'm looking back, I'm like, man, we met Buddy Rogers. Holy shit, and you just, when you're a kid, you're not really thinking of that. But he worked at the casino up the street, a few blocks away from where this was being taped, at the AWA TV taping at the Tropicana, and he worked at the Playboy casino as a maitre d'. So he just strolled down the boardwalk, and I guess he caught on to a couple of tapings, and they ended up interviewing him. But I'm not sure if it ever made it to the TV screen or not. I really don't remember. I really wasn't watching much TV then. December 1982, they had AWA would come on at awkward times too. It wasn't like a set like Saturday morning at 11. It was always an odd shit time, and then a lot of times it would come on at like midnight on when it got to ESPN. We're like, what the fuck is this? I mean, who's watching this at midnight? Terrible time slots. Mulligan and Andre, December of 1982, as we finish up this final year in December, and I didn't think this video was going to go this long, but it did. For the amount of magazines, it really, I thought was going to be a really quick video. December of 1982, Superfly now making it to the cover, challenging for the Intercontinental title. Snuka has already turned face though, but now they're trying to put him on as many magazines as they can, because he is red freaking hot right now. Buddy Rose now from the match at the Garden, finally making it to the cover, challenging Backlund for the world title. Hulk Hogan with a cover. You don't really want to see a poster of Rick Martel, do you? I mean, all right. I mean, it's really not worth looking at. Martel. If it's a champion or something that's really hot, I'll show it. But it's just someone who's just a plain Jane pinup. It's like, what's the sense? Great looking shot here of the May match. I keep saying May. I think it was May. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was May. Backlund took on Flair in the Omni. Great looking shot of Flair getting thrown from the top rope. Always like that magazine cover. Actually, got to keep that. That goes to a different shelf. And also, Main Event puts it on the cover. Snuka in the cage coverage from him and Backlund are now on the cover of Main Event. Again, the color photos of that are inside here, a couple color photos of that, so it's well worth it. That should have been the centerfold, if there is one in there. That should have been your centerfold of that cage match. JYD on the cover of Rings, red hot now in Bill Watts' territory. I mean, red hot is the Junkyard Dog. Tag team champions of Fuji and Saito regain the tag team titles. So they would go back and forth between Gurria and Martel and Fuji and Saito and the Strombo brothers, and then back to them again. It would change hands a few different times. Cover of dates ripped off the top here, but obviously it's December of '82 of KO, and rounding it all out would be a color of photo album totally dedicated to Bob Backlund from Japan, and it's a great there's shots of him, in his matches. There's a segment called "The Road to the Champion." There's a day in the life of, and their private time with him, and they're following him around. And then there's also a lot of ring matches of his from America and also in Japan. So if you're a Backlund fan and you want color shots of him, it also comes with a giant poster on the back too. I mean, it's folded and it's enormous. So I'm not going to take it out, but you kind of see it right here. He's just standing against the ring ropes with the gold belt there. If you buy this, it's not cheap. Make sure the poster's with it. Like I said before, they will try to sell it to you for $125, and there's no poster. And that's the main reason that you're buying the thing, is for the collectible posters. So if you don't care about the poster, you could probably get it a little bit cheaper, but not so much, because people still try to rip you off. But this is really cool coverage of Backlund and Backlund's career throughout his year from being champion up until the present. This was a look back, a deep dive on one of my favorite years of 1982. This is video number 99. Holy shit. I can't believe 99 videos and we're still here, man. That's something. We got to do something special for 100, huh? Have any ideas in mind? Give me a shout. I'll see you on the next.